Here.
Mr. Split.
Here.
We have a quorum.
You need help? Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm Pastor Harsha from Methodist Church. I want to read a few verses from the Bible before I pray. Matthew chapter 5, verse 3 onwards. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of God. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Let us pray. Lord, we call upon your name at this time, very significant time. The city leaders have come together to take decisions for the good of the people. We pray that your presence may be guiding them so that they may take decisions that appropriate in your sight, also for the good of the people, and particularly those who are weak and marginalized people. Lord, we thank you for every opportunity you give. Bless this council and today's all the affairs may be good in your sight. In Jesus' name, amen.
All right. Could I get a motion for approving the agenda?
Make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll second it.
You got it. Been moved by Howard, seconded by Page. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda's approved. Is there public comment? No, no public comment. Next order of business is the consent calendar. Is there a motion to approve as published?
Motion to approve as published.
Second it.
Has been moved by John and seconded by Ben. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The consent calendar is approved as published. Right, next, first action item is a Class B, all in quotes, fermented beverage and intoxicating liquor license for this fiscal year for the Mapes Hotel. Is there a motion to approve that action item?
Make a motion to approve.
Second it.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion on this item? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the liquor license for the Mapes Hotel, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is approved. Next item is a resolution authorizing limited bow hunting within city limits for the Team Ripon. Is there a motion to approve this resolution?
I'll motion it.
For a second?
I'll second it. Give it to John.
All right, it's been moved by Ben, seconded by John. Any discussion on this item?
I've got a question
Go ahead.
on it. Not familiar with this, so do they have insurance in case of damages? I didn't see any of that in here. Everything's been taken care of? And
Yep, we've been doing this now
13 years.
13 years, so every year we require them to post that liability insurance, and they work directly with the land owners as to how they utilize their property.
Okay.
And ensure that they're not any way or shape interfering with neighboring property.
Yeah.
It's worked well, and they do a good job of supervising themselves. That's been our experience.
Thank you.
A question for Lori. In their letter, Lori, they expressed interest in expanding their area in that. I know in past years, we have not let them hunt in the parks. Are we going to continue that?
Correct. Yeah, I think that would be a safety issue. We've discussed that in the past, so no parks.
Okay.
But most of it's private property owners.
And it's up to them to negotiate with those private property owners.
Correct. And if anyone listening is interested in helping thin the herd, just contact me and I can put you in touch with them.
Jolene?
I don't see on here, is there an expense that the city pays?
No, actually, the DNR provides nuisance tags to the city, so there's no cost at all.
So where it says that the deer meat is distributed to a variety of people, that's probably kind of a secondary benefit for maybe why some people perhaps sign up. If it was not, it would be nice to see, and maybe some already do this, you know, to donate some of the meat to the local food pantries. However, if we're not paying for it, it sounds like it's probably up to their discretion.
And they do offer it to the food pantries first if they are able to pay the processing costs. So they do offer it to them first.
Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the resolution allowing limited bow hunting within city limits, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is approved. Next item is discussion of the 5-year capital improvement plan. Lori, do you want to start the discussion on that?
Sure. Every year as we start the budget process, we take a look at our 5-year capital plan and see what has changed and keep that updated. So that's the first step in our budget process. As we get further into the process, if we need to prioritize those projects, if it looks like funding isn't available, that is something we go through with the council during the budget time. So this is just the first look at what staff sees as the priorities for the next 5 years.
Questions or comments on this plan?
Make a motion, we approve.
Second.
It's been moved by Dave and seconded by Paige. Any discussion on it? Jim?
Just again, that this is a ever-evolving document and plan. This is not verbatim going to be every penny of everything for the next 5 years, just so maybe new council doesn't, sorry not to, but this is, this could change next week.
Especially this year.
I mean, so just under the understanding that, I hope everyone understands that it's always been a moving thing. Things get pushed from one year to the next. The departments work very well together into, I'll give this up because this is more important for the city's well-being. So it's been a interesting document, Howard, I would say, over the last
10 years?
few years of how it's changed. So just want to make sure everyone understands that.
I appreciate you explaining that. And so what that means is, so what are we voting to approve if it's going to change? Does that mean when changes are brought forward that it will come before us as a council to formally change after this document is agreed upon today?
Correct. And that would be during the budget process if we have to change priorities or funding, you know, things like that.
Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the proposed 5-year capital improvement plan, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is approved. Next item up is a resolution pertaining to the annual compliance maintenance report for the water department. We have Chris. Wastewater. Chris, if you'd like to go over this.
Sure. What this has been going on for quite a few years. And it's more or less an assurance of the elected officials that their wastewater utility is being operated properly within the DNR guidelines and following all the rules and things like that. And they grade us accordingly based upon our lab results and our test results. And they give us a grade for each section. This year, we got a 3.95 out of 4, which is great. I have a young staff, and that's where we were a little bit shy on our grade. But after speaking with our DNR engineer in our wastewater side, he's always told me that our plant is probably one of the least things that he has to worry about because of our past performance and actually our current performance. We're doing really, really well, and he's very positive in his outlook when he discusses our plant with our staff. So, didn't know if anybody had any questions in specifics about everything on the report.
Can you explain the C?
The C is the operator certification. One of our operators does not have an advanced lab certification, and that's the one thing, and I can't lie about it, so I gotta put it down, and
Perfect.
it was a C.
Thank you.
Is he looking to get it?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes, definitely. Have to. They're constantly doing educational courses, and this year we had to do some online things, obviously, but we're always looking for continuing education credits that are required. Actually, in our plant for an advanced, we need 18 credits in 3 years. So they like to see us attend the conferences and other things that are pertinent to our area.
Chris, other years we've dealt with water flow, and I believe it was sodium levels and things like that. It appears that's been corrected now, so thank you.
Chlorides are
Chloride,
going
sorry.
down. Chlorides are going down. The fees that we implemented a couple of years are helping a little bit, but, you know, it is what it is. We really can't do too much with that, but we are gonna be putting that money away. Surcharges, in case we have to do some treatment, we wanna make sure we have something put away for that.
Otherwise, performance on the report is incredible, to say the least.
Yeah, we did good. Since 2004, I think, was the first one that I've seen. I think we've scored maybe 4.0s. And it's tough, it really is, because a lot of times you're at the mercy of the waste coming at the plant, and you can't help the strength that some of these industries are giving you. And you gotta deal with it, and sometimes it puts you over for one day of the month, and that affects your score for the year. Then that's all it takes. Wastewater is extremely, it's a lot more difficult than you think, because there's a lot more things that people are throwing at you through their waste, and then we have to make it all look good when it comes out. And you'd be surprised, and I'm sure the individuals that stopped by and went on the tour were enlightened, I hope, looking at the quality of the influent versus the effluent. Looks like you can drink it when it comes out of the plant, so we're doing well.
We appreciate all the hard work you do to get these.
I'll make sure that our staff
Yes.
knows.
I just want you to know, I mean, when we were able to walk through, we got to see what you guys are doing, all the processes, everything that from start to finish. You guys really do a bang-up job over there.
Thank you very much.
You guys,
I'll make sure they know that.
let them know that we thank them.
It comes, it really means a lot when it comes from the individuals that are elected in our community, so thank you.
And I want to echo that, because you and your staff was nothing but professional as well as transparent. And that really came across in the tour that you gave us. And I wish everyone in the city of Ripon could go through that tour. I know now is a COVID time, so we don't want to offer that, but I do believe that you said during normal times, you would welcome people to call up and
Oh, sure.
schedule
Sure.
that, because it was so eye-opening, appreciative, and a public service announcement to not put grease down the drains.
Grease and personal wipes. Personal wipes are our scourge of the wastewater industry, so my next college tour, I'm going to make sure that they know all about not flushing those things down the toilet, especially now that everybody's doing the COVID thing. Luckily, we're not getting more of those personal wipes than we usually get, but we still got our fair share. I'm really surprised that they're so popular, but keep them out of the waste stream and I'll be happy.
Chris, you also were, it was eye-opening a little bit too, or helpful to hear about lead, because from constituents, I think when I hear about wastewater, because of the notices that go out, that's the most questions I get right now. And you gave some,
As far as lead in the water,
yeah, that the notice went out, and you gave some good information to explain to us what that situation was. I don't know if you feel the need to explain that a little more here. Perhaps people are listening.
well, the lead is not in the water, drinking water from the wells. It comes when it sits idle in the pipes. And water is the most aggressive thing out there. Look at the Grand Canyon, over years. So it does have a tendency to pull things out of pipes. And some of our homes have lead services and copper pipes with lead solder. And when the water sits idle, doesn't move overnight, is usually the time. The EPA and the DNR are very concerned about first draw. When you take the first drink of water before letting it run, that has the most concentration of lead if you have lead service or lead solder. That first draw is usually the highest concentration, or older lead, or I should say older brass fixtures have lead in them as well. So as long as you flush the faucet for 30 to 60 seconds, you're flushing all that highly concentrated lead that could be right there down the drain, and then I gotta deal with it again. And then it's safe. But when we did our testing, we had some new testers. We have to have homeowners in our community that have lead services or lead solder and have them do our lead testing. Well, in 2017, we had some new people, and unfortunately, they tested in the incorrect place. They can't be in a slop sink or a basement sink where people normally don't grab a drink of water. They want it from a kitchen sink or a bathroom sink. Bottles are a little tall. They went down to the slop sink and they took the draw and it put us over the limit. So that's kind of like why we are dealing with this lead and copper. Now we have to do some studies to kind of get our water a little bit more stable. And we'll be finding out a little bit more about that this fall. So I hope that helps to answer that a little bit. Does anybody else have any water or wastewater questions about anything? Happy to answer.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Make a motion to approve the 2019 Compliance Maintenance Annual Report Resolution.
Second it.
It's been moved, seconded.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
Any discussion on this item?
Just want to reiterate, they really do a bang-up job over there. I think they do real well. And I think once the COVID restrictions are lifted, I think it'd be a great idea to put in just a PSA out into the paper that if you want to take a walk through there, to get a hold of them and see if there's a possibility to do that with them. So I think it's an eye-opening experience and the public should be able to do that.
This one need a roll call vote at all? No? Okay. All right, any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is approved. All right, next item is the discussion on the Ripon Police Department Communications Center. Chief, would you like to give us an update?
You skip something?
Why are we jumping?
He's moving quick.
Oh, yep, sorry. I missed one item. I moved my pen. I apologize, missed a couple. So first item on the discussion items is the annual room tax. We have Jason here to just inform us on that.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. So glad to be in front of you here tonight. What you have in front of you is your 2019 room tax report, explaining to you what dollars were taken in and then how those dollars are disseminated. It does collect that room tax, 10% does stay in the city, and then 70% required to come to a tourism entity. We were designated the tourism entity about 3 or 4 years ago. And groups come to us as well that are seeking funds for tourism promotion and tourism development. And we were able to disseminate those funds, and we've explained that to you in the list that's done on a quarterly basis that we submit a yearly report with that as well. So pretty straightforward in how we lay it on out. We break it down to pretty much every penny that we have for you. So I'll entertain any questions if you may have any by any means. I know it's all fascinating reading.
As far as looking, going forward, how big of a detriment has COVID been, especially with the cancellation of EAA and stuff like that?
Obviously, we're seeing significant decreases when it comes to overnight stays in the community. So far, we've received the quarter room tax, which was January through March, and we didn't really see too much there. We're still waiting to see the second quarter room tax payment here pretty soon. We're anticipating anywhere between 50 to 75% cut, I would assume, in those things. But we're kind of assured the folks that we do give dollars to, including Ripon Main Street, and the same percentage they would be getting this year, even though the dollar amount would be considerably less, but they still would be getting funding for those things to help in the promotion of that. Forward for us, we're just not quite certain how things will be for 2021, obviously, but we will prepare for those things and do as best as we can.
And as far as Airbnbs, do those factor as well?
Right, that is collected through this city.
Because I know we're
as
getting
well.
more of those, so.
Yeah, so-
Great.
And we have added those to our website as well. They weren't down there previously, so all room tax contributors are listed on our website, whether they're a member of the chamber or not.
Okay.
So that is listed on there. And I believe the city of Ripon updates that list through that webpage, so we just link into for everybody to take a look at. Anything else?
As someone who loves attending the festivals, Dickens of a Christmas, Septemberfest, obviously, the Holiday Wine Walk, all of these things, and living by the Little White Schoolhouse, it seems like it was a great summer also for that.
Well, the Little White Schoolhouse, actually, we're only down, last year was a record year for us at the Little White Schoolhouse. That was the highest numbers we had seen there in probably 6 or 7 years. And we're down 25% from last year to this year. Previous to last year, our best numbers were 2016, which was an election year. What we're seeing so far this year as compared to 2016 is we're down about 6% in terms of attendance. So, but souvenir sales and those kind of things still remain solid in those things. Obviously, Septemberfest and Cookie Days have been canceled for the year. We're looking forward to hopefully having some kind of a Dickens event, and what that may be. We're not quite sure, but we'll figure it out.
Are you able to remind us as to about how many people sometimes are brought in for some of these festivals, like the iconic Dickens of a Christmas?
Yeah, we, a few years back when we wrote the GEM grant through the Department of Tourism, and kind of people in the area, what that is. So Dickens weekend, you look anywhere probably, I would say, between 7,500 to 10,000 people. Yeah. I'm sure next year's report will be a little bit more exciting, a little bit different as to what it may be. So, but anytime you guys have any questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to do whatever we can for you. Great, thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
Thanks, Jason.
Right. Any other discussion on this item before we move on? No? All right, next item up for discussion is the proposal for executive search firms. We received several proposals. You should have all received those, hopefully read through them. Who would like to start the discussion on this?
Is this
Anybody
so,
else get sticker shock?
I think the question I have is, so if we know somebody who really is qualified for the position, are we going to not allow them to apply directly? They have to go through the firms?
I would assume that if we choose to use a firm, then that would be the case. But our first order of business is deciding if we want to use a firm or if we want to do it ourselves. And if we decide to use a firm, which one do we use?
The last time we did this, we did not use a firm. We did it as a group for the council and that, and a subcommittee. I know we spent nowhere near what is proposed here, but the main thing is that whichever way we go, we look to get the best possible candidate for this position.
So did you guys advertise, like I was looking at this when they were talking about all the places they advertised, so all that?
There was trade magazines that we advertised in, there were papers that we did advertising. And I thought we got a good round group of applicants from, throughout the Midwest area. It wasn't just, Wisconsin, we had them from Michigan, I remember, and I think one was Iowa.
California?
Yeah, there was a California one, so, and that was just through the periodicals that we had found and were recommended to us, so. And reading through a lot of these proposals, that's what they're basically gonna be doing. If you read on a little farther, the big cost to each one of their bids was their straight fee. And then they had X amount for advertising and for reviewing and that aspect. So really, we need to decide is, do we want to just turn it over to somebody else to get us down to, per se, 5 candidates and then we take it from there? Or do we want to take it upon ourselves? I think really that's what we're trying to decide tonight.
But do you remember what we spent out of pocket the last time you guys did it? Just wild ballpark figure.
Lori, do you have an idea?
It was really just the advertising costs. I know we did like monster.com. I think that might have been $500. The newspapers probably weren't quite that expensive at the time. So I'd say probably under $1,000.
Lot
Doing
cheaper
it that way, we ended up, go ahead, sorry, Dave.
A lot cheaper than I don't see what they're giving us except for,
Yeah, the legwork.
Time, experience, ability. With the council doing it, I question who on this board has HR authority and ability to do that. I know Mr. Schrader does, I know myself does. All due respect, I don't know the rest of you that well. The time and energy that got into that, hour between the subcommittee and then us doing it
Was a lot.
was a second job for some of us on the council. So that's where some of that comes into play. Also, the experience of them screening it, them getting it out there, their networks. We were able to do what we could through our advertising networks. They have different networks that we even to get it out there to more. A big thing I liked on this too was that some of them had it in their proposals of a second round if the first one doesn't work out, that they would do it on their dime, on their cost. A couple of them had other things like they had to pay for the advertising again and things like that, but other ones was waiving the consultation fees and things like that. So that intrigued me on this a lot, that they're willing to stand behind what they're bringing us for a year and things like that. So that intrigued me. Some of the costs were higher, some lower. Some had good, references. I haven't had time to reach out to all of them. We're not going to decide this tonight, in my opinion. I don't feel confident without Mr. Schrader here as spearheading this. So I would say, I think at this point we need to make sure we really read these thoroughly again. Reach out to some of the references that they have. I believe, Lud, that would be fine. They presented it as references. We can reach out to them.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's a
And-
public document.
Do our due diligence of which one you may or may not like and see if it's even feasible.
I think with, just with who knows what else the world's gonna throw at us this year and into next, for us to deal with, but also the hiccups that could be caused in, doing a search like this. I think that added benefit of having other people kind of fielding that stuff, whether it's, somebody's supposed to be coming here and they're sick, or, whatever else. I don't even wanna imagine what else we might end up dealing with, but that gives, we will be comfortable knowing that it's being dealt with. And it's not another thing that we'll have to add onto our plates, assuming that would mean that we're dealing with additional factors, especially if it's pandemic related. So I think that, the money is almost well spent just in that, in the event that something else crazy happens and the world changes again. So, because I know I don't have the expertise to learn how to do something and then deal with the unknown when it's not my field of expertise to begin with.
Excuse me.
Right, neither mine, so you say it was very labor intensive the last time. You
Yeah.
guys really, like,
Time-wise.
do a second job almost. All right,
Lori, would the funds for this be coming out of contingency, or where?
Yeah, I think we talked about if we could split it over 2 years, like maybe pay half of it this year out of contingency and then kind of plan for it for next year.
Mentioned sticker shock at first.
Yes.
And sure, that's exactly what I felt too, and as I know we all take taxpayer money very seriously, we wouldn't be in this job if we didn't, and so that was a little bit hard to swallow. And then I started taking a look, and some of the things that stood out for me, and first of all, I wanna say, for me, what stands out in getting to work with our city administrator, Lori, and how phenomenal she has been as a leader, to me, it seems that this is one of the most important jobs here for our city and for the future. And even correct me if I'm wrong, Lori, but you have helped with writing grants, with bringing opportunities, with bringing money to our city. So in some regards, we are looking at this as an investment to make sure that this person will bring back resources and money to us. And some of the things that really stood out for me is that we're not just waiting to see what types of resumes we might get and then choose the best from this. Here, many of them say that they conduct a search after knowing what most closely fits the needs of our city, and so that we are satisfied with the choice. So they're going out to find people that fit our needs. We're not just waiting for that. And then they also do say that we have some savings because they take care of clerical work. So there is some savings, it sounds like, from this. And I also really like, one of them says that they will have, at the conclusion of these interviews with us, they will conduct a review of the existing job description as well as city goals and objectives, including future projects. And they will provide recommendations for improvements or updates, but looking at the future goals. And if I remember right, previous to my time joining the council, we had a 5-year sort of plan, maybe it's 10-year plan for the city that we chose to do, I think, more of the minimum amount for our city rather than more comprehensive. So what I like is it sounds as though they will help us identify what our future goals are, what we really want to, exactly right here. This is an opportunity to shape and prepare your organization for the future. So those are things that really spoke to me. And quite frankly, I say all this because it does seem like, after getting over the sticker shock, that it would be a worthwhile investment because of how important this role is.
Looking at them, I hate the thought of spending the money, but I don't think we can take the chance to try it on our own, fail, then hire a consultant, you know, with the timeline that we really have. So I agree with, you know, Jim and Howie that we should move forward and try to pick the best candidate for it, but I don't think it would work if we did it ourselves.
I would recommend that we turn around and everybody sit down, reread everything again from each of the proposals. Kind of go through that and weed it down to the top two that you think would fit our needs and bring that back to our next meeting and have further discussion on it and then get the ball rolling. Before we know it, April's gonna be here. You know?
Yeah, I appreciate what previous council has done to do the hard work and the due diligence to put forth, bring Lori in here and make sure that our city's in good hands. But I think we should be reminded that that is part of our jobs too. To do our due diligence as, even though we're new, and for respect to everybody on the board here, even though some of us don't have the experience that others do, it is still our jobs. So I think I'm gonna have to agree with Howard. I think we should all go home, reread all of this, and in fairness to Mr. Schrader, who's not here tonight, I want his opinion here, and I'd rather see his voice here and see him be heard for this. But I just wanna remind everybody that's why we're here, that's our job. We gotta look at every avenue.
They're not gonna pick our candidate either, so I don't,
Right.
so if the public may interpret what you just said, they're gonna give us a list that we will then further, you know, going on. So we still will be a big part of this, obviously. They're doing a lot of the background, in a sense, to get us
They're gonna filter it for
70%, I
us
would
and-
think.
Yeah,
was
they're gonna
what-
filter it down for us of what we want and
Yeah.
present those candidates to us to interview. So there will still be an interview process that we will take part in. And then we get a lot of discussion from that point.
So what I hear saying is that part of our job is to treat this professionally, as the professional city that we are.
Yeah.
And so, I think, I don't want to make, a fellow council member may have made it sound like by going with a professional organization, it means maybe perhaps questioning our role. And I also want to point out that I think by doing our due diligence, by looking at what this is, this clearly also shows the importance that we are communicating out for this position. And if I was on the job market, I think that would bode well for our city, that we are treating this as professionally as we can, within obviously reason, and that's why we have the choices. And my question furthermore goes, is it appropriate to invite a representative from these to call in? Is that something that is appropriate?
Certainly, once you narrow it, I think that's fair to say if you come down to two, I like Howie's idea. You pick two and have them present and say, you get a feel for who they are and how they work and get a hard number if you want that to say, here is the not to exceed. When you read this, you kind of get lost a little bit in the trees. Are they gonna charge you $1,500 for this and automatically $2,500 for that? Or is that included in the 25,000 or the 20,000? So yes, I think that's a great suggestion. I like Howie's that we essentially a motion to table until the next meeting where Al Schrader can also look in and the message can be sent to Al to try to narrow to two.
Okay, I'd like to motion this to be to the pushback to the next meeting and table till then.
Second?
Not debatable.
The motion has been made to table this until the next council meeting. All those in favor of that, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We'll bring this up at the next meeting. Now we're on to the Police Department Communication Center.
You're up.
Thanks for letting me come and talk to you again tonight. Just wanted to touch base with the council after the August 10th meeting concerning the communication center. Just a little bit of an update and my plans here as we're moving forward. So obviously our budget, you've seen a 5-year cap plan tonight, but our budget for department heads are due to the city administrator in 4 days. So I'm just giving you an update as to my position and where I'm at. That I'm going to move ahead and prepare my 2021 budget as if the communication center is going to be remaining here in 2021. And that does a couple things for us, I think. It allows us to get that budget process done for 2021 for the PD and the other departments, quite frankly, the emergency departments. Really what it does too is it allows us to just kind of pull back and slow down to get a better decision on the future of that communication center. We've discussed a lot of things, you've been given a lot of information, but really we just need to, I think, pull the reins back here a little bit and slow down, and I'll touch on that in a little bit. Gives us an opportunity too for the department heads to process the future needs, whether that decision is staying or going. It gives us some opportunity to discuss those issues. Also allows for myself and Lori to meet with the Fond du Lac County representatives that were here in that meeting and just finalize some solid numbers in reference to the levy numbers and information that you were given, just to make sure that we've got that down on paper and we know exactly, get those questions answered and know exactly what those issues are, okay? So that we can then allow us to make a educated and finalized choice there if we decide to move in that direction or not. Also allows you to get some more information, get some citizen input from your constituents, and I think that's important when we're talking about a decision like this. You know, we just talked about the importance of a decision to replace Lori, and that's happening in April. Obviously, my opinion right now is that there's no way we can make a decision on this by January 1st. So it's too short of a time period. It's not really an option for us right now. So again, this is just an effort to update you, pull back the reins a little bit, slow down, allow us to all make a good decision, get all the facts that we need to get before that decision is made. Lori and I did have some discussion as well, and moving forward, obviously we'll be setting up some meetings with Fond du Lac to get that information that we talked about finalized and discussed to allow you to make a good decision on where you want to go. And then we'll just put it on agenda, future agenda, city council agendas as needed or as information becomes available for you to allow us to go forward and make a good decision then. Okay? I just kind of wanted to bring that up to you because it's been a couple weeks since we had that meeting and make sure that we're where we're at, and I think that's the prudent course right now. Questions or comments?
I do have one question. By delaying this decision, which I agree that we definitely have to make a very educated choice, are there any issues with either the 911 system or the communication center that are going to become a very large problem if we don't switch over sooner rather than later?
Well, obviously, the information I provided to you, the most pressing issue is the 911 telephone operating system that was discussed in that meeting. That's probably the highest issue in regards to the center, whether that's replaced or moving forward to transfer to Fond du Lac or whatever needs we need to address there. So that's probably the most important issue. Again, to remember, 2021, the fall of 2021, the county will be transitioning to a new CAD system, so
Obviously, my budget will reflect changes for that CAD system, but if the decision is made to transfer our service to the county, then obviously those expenses wouldn't be made. Does that kind of answer your question? I'm not sure if that's
Yes.
what you were asking. Okay.
Also the issue of making sure that 9/11 is serviced, that we don't have any issues with the equipment that's picked up by Fond du Lac County, if it happens to go down.
So if the
Two.
911's, yeah, so right now, the way it
Landline.
stands, the 911 landline system, if that goes down, they will pick up we're able to transfer those calls to Fond du Lac to allow us to get that repair made. The only issue would become if it went down permanently and we couldn't get it back up for some reason, then we'd have to make a decision there. But they are willing to take short-term, they allow us, and we do that process now. If we have a problem with our 911 system, where we're not able to get calls in, we can transfer it to the county and they'll take those calls. Every PSAP or operating service, every dispatch center has to have that ability to do that. Fond du Lac transfers theirs to Dodge County. We transfer ours to Fond du Lac County, so. But that's a short-term solution if we have a problem.
With that, so it goes to Fond du Lac, they do not an email, but they actually do a computer report. They take the 911 call, correct? They don't just forward it back to us or anything. They actually take the report and they computer generate that to us
They can
locally
do
to
it-
respond?
Yes, they do it two ways, actually. They can, so that 911 call will come to them, they enter the information, they send us the CAD, so it pops up on the screen in front of the dispatcher. She can dispatch that. They can also have the ability to transfer that call back to us,
Okay.
so that my dispatcher can talk to them on the phone.
My fear is if the CAD's down, if that's the problem with the computer, then how do we,
They're two separate systems.
thank you.
The phone system is separate from the CAD system.
By waiting a year, will that change our yearly obligation to the county? I know right now, I mean, we're flirting with what, 200,000 or 250?
Yep.
I mean, you might not even know that answer, but.
Sure. That number is based on basically our operating expense for the current dispatch center. Okay? Whatever we retain from that expense, then that amount that's left over goes to the county for them to be able to do that. That's what the meeting for myself and Lori and the Fond du Lac County representatives would be about, would be finalizing what I believe our expense would be after that, if we choose to transfer, to come up with that number from the county. Getting that down on paper, what then would have to happen is that if we get to a point where the council decides that that's the way we want to move, then the council then prepares the document and signs with the, and prepares that and signs it to the county, and that's figured into that. So that number will be, that's what we need to finalize with the county. It's roughly that amount, but that could change. Delaying that, I don't think will affect that either way greatly. There is probably, if we did a transition over, if we did a phase-in process, there's a good likelihood that they wouldn't charge us that levy, or we'd probably try to have discussions with them about not charging us that levy the first year, and then starting the second year, but that's something that we need to negotiate with them and talk to them about. And that, all that information would come back to you, for you to review prior to anything being done. But again, it's just this, by preparing our budget now and moving forward, it lets us, again, pull the reins back, slow down, make good decisions, get good information here. I don't think any of us would want to put ourselves in a position to rush into this on a decision of this magnitude for our community. So we need to make sure we have the good information in regards to that. Did you have something else, Jim?
Yeah, well, it's not gonna flip overnight, because they're gonna have to hire more individuals too, to handle our volume.
Yeah, additionally, that would allow them,
some kind of commitment letter, something, so they have
Yes.
time to get people on,
Right.
train them, get them ready for us, correct?
They would need to secure a frequency, things that we discussed in that meeting, all those things. That gives them time as well, if that's the route that we intend to take. It gives them that opportunity as well.
And a question for you, have you given any more thought to, I believe Alderman Schrader brought it up, of not just the one full-time employee during the day, about expanding that later in the, I know it's probably future talks, but has that been more
Yes.
thought process and stuff? Okay.
Yep, and that's part of the discussion and again, that affects that money that John's talking
Correct.
about.
The other employee, the other officer, what we decide to do for the extra
That-
hours.
That money needs to be used for emergency services. So, again, that would affect that dollar amount that John's talking about. Correct, Lori?
Correct, yep.
Thank you, Bill.
So, we'll keep you
I
updated.
have a couple, just
Sure.
a couple questions to follow up on. And one of them, that you just talked about was sort of the hiring, that they would need time to ramp up their staff at the county. One of the things that was presented was that there are current openings, and we heard the county welcome our communication officers, and even noting that it sounded like would give them priority. Our Ripon office, our communication officers, so that they could have that. So is there a concern by pushing this back to perhaps a year, or undoubtedly when, that our communication officers may feel a little bit in limbo? Perhaps they start to look now, where right now there is openings, and it did sound very promising, almost short of guaranteeing they would be hired. And now we're putting them in a really tough place.
Well, I appreciate that. Quite frankly, the indecision here that's been going on the last couple months in reference to this is probably putting them in more limbo and indecision on their part than the opposite. They want, and that's why, Lori and I need to meet with them and get some information to you, but my proposal to them right now, and what I've told my staff, is that I'm preparing the 2021 budget as if this center is going to be operational for 2021. As we move forward, then certainly we can address those issues. The county did say during that meeting, if you remember, that even if they have openings and our employees want to apply there, they would hold those slots. If they're acceptable for them, they would hold them in those slots, anticipating their move once we close. So, I think, we're kind of looking at that, but obviously there's some, concern on the staff, and that's why, too, in slowing down, realizing that, we're looking at least until this time next year before any, if the change would go, at least puts them at a little bit of an ease there as far as their current position.
I'm glad you say that, because I'd hate to slow down and think that that's gonna help them, and all of a sudden those positions are no longer open because the county has hired other people, and now our people are not able to get those positions.
Yep, and Bobby Hicken explained that they would have that opportunity to apply, and then she would just hold that position there for them. Okay?
And then the question about sort of the going down on the outage, it's not actually that far-fetched from what you shared, that, we had that outage, that we still don't know why, what caused that
The
outage.
911 system?
Yes.
Yes.
And going back to the original question, and so my understanding of why, change is hard. Of course, we don't want to push anything through without getting information out and getting feedback. But it seemed to me the reason why we were having this conversation now is because we had an outage. This could happen at any time, and by pushing this out into the future, while it may seem today comforting, to the point that was brought up by the, by others, we could be putting ourselves in more of a desperate situation in an unexpected time, perhaps, whereas now we are going through the budget process to think about this.
The bottom line in reference to the 911 system is this. Either the problem gets solved with a transition to Fond du Lac County Dispatch. If the view of the council is that the dispatch center remains here, then that's going to be a price tag of something that needs to be replaced if that's the decision. There's no other way to look at that. It either needs to, our liability and our concerns about the stability of that system have to be answered. And that's either going to be answered by one, moving our dispatch center to Fond du Lac, Or two, this council and this community saying, we're willing to make that investment within our dispatch center and we need to pay for this somehow. As far as it being operational, again, we continue to work. If we have short-term outages, we can transfer those. The community is not at risk right now of not having 911 service. If the system goes down, we can transfer those calls to Fond du Lac. And the vast majority of our 911 calls come in by cell phone now anyways, through the county. So, but that decision in reference to that system alone has to be answered by whatever the decision is on the communication center.
So I feel like we have to make it anyways, and at this point, since the public is hearing about this, it seems a little bit to make sense to make sure we're getting this information out to the public, so we continue this conversation rather than saying, well, maybe in some indefinite time in the future, we will bring this back. It seems like the public is now made aware, and my question might be, how can we provide some of these specific materials that we are receiving now to our community and kind of keep up this momentum? It seems like it's a decision we have to make anyways. So what is our plan to get the information
Things we've
out?
done in the past is we've had, because this is a huge decision for
Yeah.
not just the 8 of us, but for the community, because of the magnitude of it, maybe we need to set up a night or two for the citizens to come down, be able to see all the information, hear from the chiefs of their departments, give them information, and say, hey, this is what it's gonna cost, you know, are you guys willing to pay for this, or do we transfer it? And that's how we get more. I've talked to quite a few people regarding this, and, you know, I think a lot of them are thinking with their hearts and not with their heads as much. But to get the actual facts out to them so they can see the black and white, it make it a lot easier. Then, you know, do we turn around and make the decision? Does it go to a referendum? You know, those are things that we can think about. But the biggest thing would be to set up a couple of times to have open house for the citizens to come down and
Yeah, and I would
get
just
information.
caution that I think it's important that Lori and I meet with the county
Well, you gotta get all your
to get
facts.
those facts together first.
Yep.
Before there's this mass information that goes out that's either misinformation or we don't have the answers to. So I think the first step in slowing this down a little bit, there is no way that we can fulfill this process by the time that January 1st rolls around regarding the decision either way. That just can't happen, based on the enormity of the decision and what needs to happen. So I think the purpose here tonight is to say, let's just slow down. Let's make a good decision here, and the first step in that decision is making sure that we have all of our facts in regards to costs, savings, those type of issues, requirements, other things that are gonna have to happen. I've given you a pretty detailed information packet that outlines a lot of that, but I think it's important that we now start to lock those things down so that you have the ability to make a good decision and answer those questions that are gonna be coming your way as this topic gets out. I'm not aware that, you know, we did surveys in the past about how people get their information from what we do at the police department, and the vast majority of people get their information through our local newspaper. I'm not aware that they've done anything in regards to this yet. So, obviously, the meeting from the other night was aired, but again, I'm not sure, you know, who's seen that. So, again, let's slow down. Let Lori and I make some meetings here and get some information with the other emergency department heads as well, and then we can continue to update you and bring you back that information.
Can you get a little more detail as far as, I know we have costs done, and it's done very well, but as far as waiting, new radios, reprogramming, you know, the different departments, I heard some, you know, I have to reprogram these, things of this nature. Just what would happen if we waited, the 911 goes down, we have to repair it. The other thing would be, I'm hearing about the radio traffic. If we have once we go with them, they're talking about getting more channels, more frequencies. What's the timeline on doing that? To keep from getting, you know, if we have two major incidents, are you guys gonna be talking over each other or waiting, or where the problem would be there, and how long would it be before we get new frequencies?
Yeah.
Where that problem goes away?
Yeah, and I can tell you that, you know, I did have some discussions with the county representatives about my discussion with you tonight and what I was going to be saying. And that was one of the things we talked about, was this allows them to get more time to secure those frequencies. They've all, you know, initially, I think we indicated, in the document that their proposal would be for us, North Fond du Lac and Waupun, to go on one frequency. I think we had some discussions about that at the meeting. North Fond du Lac has already stated that they're not leaving. They're on a system called Wiscom. They're not leaving that. They're on with the city of Fond du Lac. They're the only two agencies in the county that have that. They're not leaving that, so that would leave us and Waupun on one frequency,
Okay.
which is a significant
Feel
difference as well.
comfortable about that?
Yeah. So, but yes, I will answer those questions and those issues that you've got. And certainly, if you have questions about anything that's been discussed about this or going forward, I would encourage you to come and see me and talk to me about those things. And I'm happy to spend any amount of time with you that is necessary. But Lori and I will be scheduling some meetings here to get some information locked down for us, so that you're able to make a better decision.
Jim had a question?
Kind of same, it was operational, I mean, same thing, you get rid of dispatch locally, you're gonna have to change things operationally, fire department's changing things operationally, the EMS is gonna have to change things operationally, that doesn't happen overnight either. You know, and
Correct.
just the day-to-day operations of your officers, of the fire, of the EMS, that's all gonna need to trickle down, so that's a what-if scenario that hadn't even got close to touched yet.
Correct. And how that's going to happen, whether it's going to be, you know,
Or
one department at a time, or.
September 1st.
Right, exactly.
January 1st. Yeah, I'm with you.
Again, let's,
And thank you for the references to the chiefs.
Okay.
Appreciate that.
they're more than willing to talk to anybody, so. Anything else?
I will just add, it's hard for me to see how it's valuable to indefinitely wait when it seems as though with budgets coming, it would be helpful for department heads to be able to start planning for expenses based upon a certain way of leaning. That seems like that would be helpful in planning. However, I hear you saying quite clearly that you feel comfortable waiting more, and I respect you so much. And so, I mean, this is ultimately why I feel comfortable with that. But it seems hard to believe that not giving some type of a direction wouldn't be helpful as department heads think about their plan for the entire next year and how that may shape what their priorities are.
Yeah, and I'm not at all saying that this decision needs to be put off for a year. I think you just need to we all need to
Facts.
have better facts and information here before that decision is made.
Agreed.
There are things that I will put in my budget for 2021 that if the decision is made to go that way, obviously those expenditures won't be used. There are also things that if we decide to stay, that those expenditures will be used. And there will be, you know, other decisions, but, yeah, I don't think that we'll be waiting a year for a decision to be made. I think we just need to slow down here a little bit and not rush that, but yeah. I appreciate that. Anything else? Okay.
Thank you, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
Yeah.
All right. And we will discuss that further at future meetings. Next item up is the proposed voluntary face mask proclamation that has been revised. You should all have a copy of the revised proclamation. Is there any? Well, I'll just ask if there's any interest in moving forward with this proclamation.
I just want to state that I think it's not necessary to go with the voluntary mask proclamation due to the fact that the state governor has already issued a mask mandate. You have no sunset date on this at all, So I mean, it could be forever, you know. I think it's just a little overkill, seeing the state's already put the mandate in there.
I agree exactly with Howie. I don't think we need to pursue this. I said it last meeting, so I still stand with that.
I'm just gonna reiterate again. People in this country have their own convictions. They've done all their own research. They believe whatever articles they want. Regardless of a governor's mandation on a article of clothing that he is going to force people to try to wear. People have done their own research and they can decide on their own whether they want to wear one or not. If you want to look at the science of this, if we were to shut down the country as a whole and have a legitimate shutdown for a whole month where nobody's going anywhere, then sure, maybe we would actually stand a chance of getting rid of this thing. Problem is when you reopen the country, it's gonna come right back because international travel is gonna open up and the world isn't gonna shut down. So, more so a statement, I don't agree with having to put a voluntary proclamation out there. Again, people have their own convictions. And I think, that we should respect that as well.
All right, the governor has, it's a mandate, I can't see doing this, it kind of takes away from, the governor's already mandating face masks. And if anything, I mean, everybody has an opinion on this, I don't understand why we're not all wearing masks anyway. And you're not free to cause harm to someone. If someone has COVID, does not know it, you can cause harm to other people. It's not too much to ask to do this. And it should be mandatory because people won't do it. If anything, I'd rather see us do a mandatory one to back up the governor.
I think when we look at what proclamations are for, these are an age-old tradition among local government. I think that they are largely symbolic, but they serve to increase public awareness of a worthy cause. And I think that if we are, my understanding of proclamations that have come before the city is that, correct me if I'm wrong, they are voted upon, correct? And so I don't know, in the past, I have not witnessed a time where someone has brought forth a proclamation and we haven't even gone to a vote before it's gone. And so I do think that this deserves a vote, perhaps, to honor this. And I think that when we look at the history of our city, this serves to say, where do we stand as a city? Yes, it is symbolic. Yes, there is already a mandate. But we are saying as a city, as leaders, here is what we, certain individuals may stand for. One example that I will just bring to light, as many of you know, I've been serving on the Ripon Volunteer COVID-19 Task Force. And through this, I've been doing a lot of research, reaching out to different areas. And there was a situation where a local assisted living facility was doing its absolute best to make sure its residents were safe because it's a very vulnerable population, very vulnerable. And then when the services started opening back up for hospitals, eye doctors, dentists, their residents were able to go out and about. And our incredible transportation taxi service, I give them a shout out because I know that they serve also so many of our vulnerable populations. And I just am so grateful that we have our taxi service. But it was indicated to me that some of the taxi drivers were not wearing masks. And the assisted living were trying so hard because, as we know, if they get one case, it's gonna go like wildfire. And we deserve to protect these people. And so what I was told when I called our taxi company, who was very wonderful, she's listening, I'm grateful for her service and her leadership in the taxi service, was, how do you expect me to get our taxi drivers to wear masks when our city leaders don't even do this? When our city leaders are not even leading by example, and you think I can make our drivers wear one? And we put families at such a hard place where their loved ones, maybe this is their only way to get transportation to and from the hospital. And we as a city, now it's not gonna change, maybe these individuals are not gonna wear masks because to their point, this is just a proclamation, it's just symbolic. We're not mandating anything. But if we as leaders can say we care about our vulnerable population, for me, that's the side that I will always come down on. And so for me, this proclamation says something important, and for those people that maybe need a reason to wear a mask because, you know, they say, well, you know, it's a city proclamation. And maybe that's enough reason. If that's what's gonna allow them to be able to make that decision, I will be proud to support this. And I will keep in mind what I learned when I want to help take care of our vulnerable population in this community.
Just to go back to something you just said about our taxi service, yes, they do a great job. As someone who is married to someone who works for the taxi service, they have been told to wear masks. But if you also read it, the governor's mandate, it says if medical reasons, you can have a waiver. I believe there's one of the drivers that has one of those. I don't know how they've done the scheduling of that, but I do know the drivers that are out there do wear the masks that do not have the medical condition. So I find it hard to believe that someone would say that they can't get their drivers to wear them if the city leaders aren't enforcing it. That's a bunch of hogwash.
No, I want to clarify, this was before the mandate,
Yeah.
Okay.
right? This
That's
was before the
different. You didn't
mandate.
state when.
That's true,
Yes.
and also, it was not about, you know, enforcing, this was about just them making a reference that, you know, I guess them acknowledging that our actions as leaders, we do model what others should do. And again, this is not mandating anything, this is just simply saying what we as leaders.
It's a feel-good statement is what it basically comes down to.
And I guess just for the record, obviously, this was an issue prior to the governor's executive order. So this would have to be reworded if there was a will of this body to make a statement that we're following the governor's executive order. I think Howie makes a good point. You can read the governor's order. It has exemptions in it. For us to try to say, oh yeah, by the way, we agree, we got to be careful because that's not what this says. This says we encourage people. It's actually more than that. If they fail to do it, there could be consequences, and we're not strongly encouraging anybody. We are following the executive order is what we are doing as citizens of the city of Ripon. So we'd have to reword this if we want to go with some symbolic gesture. So I'm not in favor of acting on this proclamation. If you want to come with another one that, you know, we've read the executive order, we agree with the governor that the terms and conditions of the executive order should be followed by the city of Ripon, perhaps you can do that. But then all you're doing is being redundant, and you may confuse the citizens as to what they need to follow. Because you can read it. I got a copy of it the day after he did it, and as Howie pointed out, there are some exemptions. There are some points of clarification, and they're not in this proclamation. So this, I would not encourage you to consider this evening. If you want to have the city attorney's office and the mayor go back and come up with some other symbolic measure, I just think you got to be careful. You got to make sure you don't run afoul of the executive order. And to my knowledge, it hasn't been challenged in court yet. I know that there was discussion of doing that, but I haven't seen that case yet. So that would be my concern this evening. Thank you.
I think it just puts us at risk of leading to miscommunications within the community. If, you know, it'll lead people to question, well, even whether it says voluntary or, you know, that we support it, it just adds more to an already,
Confusing mandate.
yes, yeah, and I think that opens us up to potentially unnecessary concerns or complaints. So I don't know that it's something that's necessary.
No, it can only confuse. This one could only
Yeah.
confuse the public. They can
Right.
say, oh, voluntary, and voluntarily, wait a second, I didn't read the governor's executive
Right.
order.
And I don't think
It
that's
can be
fair
read
for
and
us to
everybody
do.
should read it, because that is currently the law.
Can't make a less restrictive law than the governor's.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Can't make it less restrictive.
Yeah, less restrictive. If you want to get more restrictive, that's a different story. That you could debate.
I think we owe it to our community to not cause any unnecessary confusion by issuing something, even if it's reiterating the same thing. I think that could cause people to be up in arms just because it's the buzzword of masking and mandate. And I don't think people need any more stress than they already have right now by us issuing something that's basically saying, yep, do this because the governor said so. That's my 2 cents on that.
Well, do we have to take a vote? I think I'm also worried about taking a vote that if we vote down, that we support masking. I also don't want that headline in the paper.
We
that-
could
that
just-
we are
It's,
could just move
it's
on.
here before Take you any for action. discussion only. It's not an action item. I mean, you certainly could say, I want this as an action item at the next meeting, and then you can do that. Again, I'm pretty confident in my position. You could create liability for the city by confusing the public. What you should say, what you can say, we have said, go read the governor's executive
Yeah.
order. Everybody should get a copy online or wherever they get it, and read it, because it's out there. And it's easy reading, it's only a page and
a
Yeah,
half.
it isn't, it's, actually, I get too much reading, but
Howard.
I actually could get through that.
No,
I'm just, there's somebody who goes, I don't wanna read a government document, it's just a page and a
Halfway
half.
through and you go, stop.
But I will just add, and Howard, you said it last time too, that, you know, in the community, that you do talk about, talk to people and about making healthy decisions, and as a business owner, you know, thinking about that. And I just want to also, I guess, as a community member, as someone who was on the task force, say thank you to the fellow council members for engaging in these conversations and helping our community to be as safe and healthy as we can.
Thank you.
Right, if there's no more discussion on this item, we will move on. Is there any other discussion? No? All right. Moving on to project updates and staff reports. Lori?
We have 2 employees that have anniversaries in the month of August. Both are in the police department. Officer Susan Straholski, 4 years, and Paul Middlestat, 6 years.
Anything else for you?
Nope, that's it.
Anything for you? Nothing for Public Works. All right, we have one appointment for the Public Library Board of Trustees. This would be filling the Ripon Area School District seat on that board. The school district has put forward Travis Lipdow. Is there a motion to approve him to the library's Board of Trustees?
Motion
I'll second it.
Moved by David, seconded by Jolene. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor of approving Travis Lipdow to the Board of Trustees for the library, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is approved. And I do have a statement. As the curve of the new COVID-19 cases in the state is coming down, the same cannot be said about Fond du Lac County or Ripon. This month, new cases in Ripon have been steadily rising. In about 3 weeks, Ripon's case count has doubled from the total of cases reported from the beginning of the pandemic through the first week of August. We must do better at preventing the spread of disease in our community. This means practicing social distancing, avoiding large crowds, washing your hands often, covering your face when you cough or sneeze, and wearing a mask when in public. If you are showing symptoms of COVID-19, separate yourself from other people and call your doctor. We cannot get lax in following these measures just because we're tired of them. They are still very important. We will get through this pandemic together and be stronger as a community. And always, be safe, stay healthy, and remember to be kind, considerate, and respectful to others. Is there any comments or future agenda items, suggestions from the council? Hearing none, I will seek a motion for adjournment.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.